It's hard to say a few words about Cousin Howard. But at the same time, I'm not going to take up too much time. Some of my fondest memories when I was a kid, of course, was my Uncle Clay's family. Howard, he and his brother were quite different, both very entertaining in their own ways. Howard didn't start out as Howard in my life. He started out as Tuffy. We all called him Tuffy. I don't know where that came from, but up until I was well into my later childhood years, he didn't become Howard. One of the things that I remember about him was he had a friend, a buddy, Charles Falk. And there probably wasn't a more devious pair in town than the two of them. What they didn't think of probably couldn't be thought of, but Falk's dad, Clarence Falk, who was known as Bake, owned the bakery here. And he had just loads of goodies in that bakery that Howard and Charles Falk could bribe their friends with. They had thieved macaroons and donuts and jelly donuts and whatever they could. And instead of them getting into trouble directly by themselves, they'd bribe other kids to get into trouble. And but it soon became known, who was behind it all. I found out about it through my dad. Dad was always coming home, and he was telling Mom stories about what problems they got into. He could probably say something like, "Oh well, Tuffy and that Falk kid, they bribed some kids today with about a half a dozen donuts to turpentine Mrs. O's cat." It was that kind of story that they'd be telling. And Cardin Shaw, he was the superintendent here. He wasn't any of our relatives, but anyway, when Dad might come home with a story like, "Well, Tuffy and the old Falk kid were in the superintendent's office today. They bribed a bunch of girls to cover the chalkboards with lipstick and then pat it down real good with some of the chalk dust." Things like that. They were always doing something. Of course, they got caught for doing a whole lot of stuff themselves. One of the things that just scared my aunt and uncle to death about what he and Falk would do was they'd go out in the pasture and they'd dig caves back in the side of the sandbanks. And they just knew that one of these days those boys were going to get caught buried alive back in one of those caves, And one of the things I can remember was I got paid to rat them out if I saw them going back into the pasture with a shovel or something, because they were going to dig a cave. But I do remember when their cave digging days ended. A block from here, down at the bottom of the hill, is where my aunt and uncle and the two Shaw boys lived. And one day, while the folks were gone, their folks were gone, Howard and Falk, they decided they were going to continue their cave digging in the bank of, they had a high retaining wall down there, built out of gypsum, and so they tore out part of the retaining wall and dug a cave back in there. And when the folks came home, saw the pile of rocks and all the dirt out on top of the rocks, that was the end of the cave digging days. I can remember that. One of the other things I remember, Howard hung out at our place a lot. He brought various friends, mostly girl variety of friends, by the house, and he could play boogie-woogie on the piano, and he could just make that piano bounce up and down. And I remember he and one girl in particular, Leela Faye, they'd come in the house there and they'd get on that piano bench and they would just absolutely bang the keys off that piano. But my folks didn't seem to mind that. I would always visit Arkansas at least once every year, stay with Aunt Myrtle and Uncle Clay. And for the most part of that time, Charles, he was gone. He was in the service at that time. Remember the Coast Guard. Howard wasn't old enough at that time. But I remember that we hung out at the Fayetteville swimming pool quite a bit. And that was for the purpose of impressing girls primarily, you know. And I was supposed to take lessons. I did, but I didn't do a very good job of it. Yeah. Anyway, we went frog hunting a lot down on the White River. There's a little town of Elkins back south of Fayetteville. We'd go down there and we'd swim in the river. I say we'd swim in the river. Howard taught me to swim pretty much in that old river. And the instance that brought that about was that we were fishing down there one time, and we were fishing by an old site where there had been an old mill, and there was a mill race there. And I unluckily fell into that mill race, and I didn't know how to swim. And I bobbed up out there in the waterways, and I heard my uncle hollering at Howard. He said, he was telling him to get over to me, you know. Well, I expected Howard to kind of walk on the water to get over there, but the sucker he didn't. He ran around the edge of the pool, and he didn't dive in to save me either. He just handed me the end of his fishing pole. I don't know when I was ever so disillusioned with my cousin. Anyway, he did try to teach me to swim after that. We went on frog hunts on the White River and had fireworks on the river. I remember having Roman candle fights. Oh, we had a great old time. And then finally, I met Gladys. And she was mighty easy on the eyes. That's the first thing I remember about Gladys. Anyway, that was the end of his dating with other girls. And, you know, I'd been on a date or two, believe it or not, with Howard. And he was supposed to teach me how to behave. Well, that didn't work out very good. But anyway, after he met Gladys, well, one day they showed up at our place there, here in town. And lo and behold, they disappeared one afternoon. And when they came home, they were married. They'd been over to Canadian Texas, they got married. He was 18, she was 16. And I guess they could do that back in those days. Anyway, they did. Anyway, I remember I got kicked out of my bedroom, and that became the honeymoon suite. Now, the honeymoon suite is now our library in the same old house, which we now live in. And I seldom walk through that room, down into the den that I don't occasionally think of that being the honeymoon suite of Howard and Gladys. And Gladys, I think, was probably the best thing that ever happened to that boy. If he could be straightened out, she straightened him out about as good as anybody could, I think. And I'm not sure she got the job completely done, but she did try her best. Anyway, one of the things that Howard loved to do was come back for this occasion, the alumni celebration in Bayside High School. You know, he didn't graduate here. They moved to Arkansas, and another memory I have of him, I'll share with you, is when they left town, Howard was in the back of this truck at the piano playing Boogie Woogie, and he was just bouncing up and down. I'll forever have that image in my mind. But anyway, he loved to come back to alumni, and he always had some good suggestions to pass on to the alumni committee. And sometimes they didn't appreciate it, but he had some good suggestions. And a lot of the things that he suggested they did do. They followed up on, and I was glad for that. One of the things that Howard did was his Sunday phone visits that we had. I know Cecil Earl Wildman back there. He got a call about every Sunday from Howard. And when I was home, why, I got a call too. And I've missed those times since Howard's passed, and I'll always remember them, and I'll always be extremely grateful for that particular time we had together. We had other times together personally, but in my memories. I think that Howard's consideration for his phone calls will be some of the best, some of my better memories of Howard. I thank you, and I hope you all loved him as much as I did, and do, and always will. And he's been a real pleasure and treasure to my life, and I hope he has to yours too. Thank you very much. And I love you so. The people ask me how I've lived till now. I tell them I don't know. I guess they understand how lonely life has been. But life began again the day you took my hand. And yes, I know how lonely life can be. The shadows follow me, and the night won't set me free. But I don't let the evening get me down. Now that you're around me, and I love me too. Your thoughts are just for me. You set my spirit free. I'm happy that you do. The book of life is brief, and once a page is read, all but love is dead. And